Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
And good morning to you. It is the 28th of August. I'm being assaulted by leaf blowers in my neighbor's yard, and I've been told you never hear them, but they're driving me insane. So if I seem a bit distracted, it is because of those vile instruments. There is no reason for them to be so. Okay, don't do the rant. Don't do the rant. Leave it alone. They've heard it. It's of no interest to them. Oh God, you know what I'm getting sick of? I'm getting sick of, you know how much I love obituaries. I'm getting sick of, heading with great anticipation toward the obituary page. I'm not ghoulish. I'm just fascinated by the lives I find there, albeit now gone. And something that I can't help but notice is that, good God Almighty, lately it seems, this is my impression, that an awful lot of young people are ending up in the obits when it seems they should have 20, 30 years left. Today was an example. I couldn't even bear to read the obituaries. It was two people that I admittedly didn't know of, but clearly had done some important work to have gotten themselves a New York Times obit. And one was 49 years old. And they're both black men. They're both black men. We don't kill enough of them. They got to die on top of it. Natural causes. Although often these days they don't tell you what the hell they died of. But Eric Butler was a guy who, I just from reading the first paragraph, I mean, this 49-year-old had just done incredible work, seeking justice for people who had been taken in and pretty much destroyed by our criminal justice system. He did good work saving others. Dead, 49 years old, and the other, a jazz guitarist, Russell Malone, 60 years old. Damn. So I'm just saying, and I guess because I am old now, I am at the age when I drop dead, if it were even today, nobody would say, oh, no one would say that. Oh, she's so young. Because I ain't. But I feel I feel like I'm still a work in progress. And I'm still like trying to get myself together, my life together, trying to be a better person. And to think that so many people don't get the time that I have had and that I, in so many respects, have not used well or wisely. It just makes you, think. Anyway, that's what I was thinking. I also want to say this, and this is again, it has nothing to do with what I was just talking about, but I want to note something that you might have missed. You know how every state has a tourism bureau and every state has like a website that you can go to and find out what's there and what you can do. The state of Florida, obviously, is a huge tourist destination by virtue of its weather and its water. And they have, obviously, one of these sites. And It's called Visit Florida. And somebody noticed something. It's not clear exactly when, but sometime this summer, an entire section of the Visit Florida, this state-maintained tourism website, went missing. It's gone. And guess what it was? It was for LGBTQ people who might be planning a trip to Florida and might want to know about specific resources, places, and things that the queer traveler might be more likely to want to spend some time. And of course, because tourism is this big business, time and money. And I just want to say that things like this don't happen just on a whim, they don't happen by accident. The state of Florida is clearly signaling that it doesn't want to in any way help gay visitors to get to places that they may want to see. Here's all I want to say to that. And I say this over 35 years, except for when I was sent there for my television work. And I do that not because I don't like beautiful beaches and nice warm weather, although the warm weather I'm getting enough of here. The fact is, I always think of where I want my money to go. And I will be damned if I enrich a red state's economy. I won't. I won't. I know most of you aren't that, you can call it whatever you want, crazy or persnickety. But I figure like the one thing we've got in this consumer culture is to choose where we spend our money and to whom we give it. Why give it to Ron DeSantis's vile state? Why? And I would only say to gay people, because there's a lot of obviously gay enclaves in Florida and that are welcoming. Think about it. Think of getting yourselves into a more gay-friendly state to spend your money. I mean, I don't understand it. I don't understand it. Okay. I feel like I've had a lot of things in my quiver here that I have been wanting to talk about for some time, and I keep getting sort of overrun with news of the day or something that just seems bigger. You know what I mean? Um, and I'm going to try to get to some of those today. Like this. Gosh, I've been holding this for so long. You know, when Trump at the Republican convention talked about mass deportation, what he intends to do, whole families, people who have lived here for their entire lives, some of them, being rounded up, put in camps. He's been very specific about how this is going to be, and then shipped against their will out of, in many cases, the only country they've ever known, where they've worked, where their friends are, and shipped to a country that they don't feel comfortable in, where they may not speak the language. And when he brought up mass deportation in Milwaukee at the Republican convention, people, the people in that convention crowd cheered. They cheered. Can you imagine the level of disconnect from humanity that you have to cheer at the prospect of rounding people up, men, women, and children, and kicking them out, to cheer that? And he says he'll use armed troops. You know, it is something that would only happen in a frighteningly undemocratic country, right? Well, wrong. And here's the thing I've been wanting to share with you: an uncomfortable reality check about our country. And this is the kind of thing that Ron DeSantis and Republicans want to bury. They don't think we should know our own history. They want us to live in some airbrushed mythology because they think if we know our history, we won't love our country. Now, I know a lot of the history, and I still love this country, feel I have a stake in it, and want to protect it. They don't get that. They think the only way you can love America is not to know it. So, a dose of history. What Donald Trump wants to do, this mass deportation of families, children, old people, the United States has done before, many times. I didn't mean to scream at you. Many times. Okay, let's go back. I know I might be missing some, but I'm sure you've heard of the Trail of Tears. That was under a president that Donald Trump adores as much as he knows anything about him. It's probably what he knows about him that he put Andrew Jackson's portrait up in the Oval Office when he was in it himself. Yeah, Andrew Jackson actually signed into law. So our Congress was part and parcel of this extraordinary act of inhumanity. It was called the Indian Removal Act. And the year was 1830. And tens of thousands of humans who had been on this land before we came and took it away from them were rounded up and marched thousands of miles, many dying on the way. marched into the center of what was then the United States, but a territory. Shoved them out as far as they were willing to shove them at the time. And then, maybe you don't know this one, but during the Depression, understandably, Americans were freaking out because they were out of work. They were terrified. And so, during the Depression, our government kicked out of this country almost 2 million people of Mexican descent. And understand, some of them, as a matter of fact, it's thought half of them were American citizens. Okay. So that ain't ancient history because that's in your grandparents' or your parents' lifetime. We rounded up Mexican Americans, 50% of them citizens, and tossed them out of their country. And then there was something. We weren't done with the Mexicans. There was something under a president that I have come to admire in many ways. This is not certainly one of the things. Dwight Eisenhower. He presided over something called, I kid you not, Operation Wetback. That would have been in the early 50s. And he used the Border Patrol to again force over 1 million Mexican laborers back over the border. So, when all of these things happened, and I'm not even going into, what we did in World War II with the Japanese Americans. I'm not going into any of that. I'm just doing these few things that bring us very close to our own moment in American history. And I want to also tell you that all of these operations that occurred during Democratic and Republican administrations were wildly popular by the with the American people who, like the Republicans at the convention in Milwaukee, cheered this mass deportation. And here we are again. Never mind that history shows that these kinds of deportations hurt our economy. They're always, it's always because we're supposed to help the economy. These people are taking our jobs. No, they're doing jobs that contribute. They pay taxes, all of that stuff. Trump is saying he will expel up to 20 million people. And that's odd because, as far as we know, there's only 11 million undocumented immigrants in this country today. And in polls taken of Americans, this is a popular idea, including a third of Democrats say, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do it. So I've been wanting to point that out to you because we aspire to the better angels of our nature and our country. But we so often fall short. And there is nothing gained in refusing to acknowledge our wrongs, the shameful chapters in our history. Because there are glorious chapters as well. It is impossible for a person to be perfect. It is impossible for a nation to be perfect. And it is irrational and delusional to insist that we then decide to mythologize rather than deal with our reality. And again, the blatant racism that we're talking about in this, these are not white people. Okay? Let's acknowledge that these are not white people, all of these instances I'm talking about. In the absurd color scheme we've agreed on, they're red, white, and yellow. I mean, red, brown, and yellow. Right? It's not Norwegians, people from Norse descent, overstaying their visas that we've got targeted. So let's be clear. I mean, the racism in Trump's that underlies so much of Trump's appeal, and he's, as we know, gone far, far beyond dog whistles. He doesn't even bother with them anymore; just flat out says it unapologetically. So the percolation of hatred of the other is really bubbling now in this country. Of immigrants, of gays, of trans people, of Jews. And we can't pretend otherwise. Otherwise, we're doomed. I read a story in the Jewish Chronicle, which is the paper of the local Jewish community, yesterday, that just broke my heart. It broke my heart. It was a story about artists here in Pittsburgh who are Jews. People who they're part of the arts community. And that's a very thriving community in Pittsburgh, which is wonderful, wonderful. But the article was about how some of these Jewish artists, even if their art is not about Jewish things, are feeling uncomfortable, unwelcome, unsure about hanging out at events with the people they were just fine and dandy with before October 7th. And it's hard to believe that Jews in this country now, which has always been so unbelievably welcoming to us, now again are feeling uncomfortable, and in some cases fearful. And of course, it's not just this country, it's all over the place. I saw there was a synagogue in southern France that was bombed Sunday. In the first 3 months of this year, France has recorded an average of 4 anti-Semitic attacks a day. Okay. That is Europe's largest Jewish population. And then there was this article that was in the New York Times, I think, Sunday, and it was about an event. It was like to be a conversation between two men, with an audience that can ask questions and stuff at a bookstore in New York City. And it involved an author who had written a book called Tablets Shattered: The End of an American Jewish Century. And he had, as he was bringing as his guest, one of the most well-known liberal Jewish Reform Jewish rabbis in town, Rabbi Andy Bachman. And so these guys, the rabbi and the author, are heading over to the bookstore, and the author gets a message from his publicist who says, "We got a problem. The manager of the bookstore is saying that we can't have the rabbi because he's a Zionist." And the author thought, what? I mean, he has this Zionist, yeah, he believes that Israel has a right to exist. He's been extremely critical of Netanyahu's regime, of what has happening to Palestinians, and he's just now reduced to he's a Zionist and he won't be welcomed. He thought, that is unbelievable. So he said, never mind, I'm going there and I'll talk to him. And the author, by the way, describes himself as an anti-occupation Jew. He's on the left. He, however, believes that Israel has a right to exist, like the rabbi. So he goes to the bookstore called Powerhouse, thinking he could resolve things. Obviously, this is nuts. And he talks to the bookstore's manager. And she said, "I'm sorry. We don't want a Zionist on stage." And put a sign on the door saying, "Sorry, due to unforeseen circumstances, tonight's event is canceled." There was nothing unforeseen about it. She'd agreed. She knew who was coming, but she'd been obviously pressured. And the author said, "Wait a minute, so you're selling my book, but we can't talk about my book?" And then he said this. I mean, his heart's broken. Jews' hearts are being broken, left, right, mostly left these days. The right, we knew. He said, "My Zionism demands that we also recognize Palestinian claims on a national homeland. I believe in sharing the land, full stop, period. But the only acceptable Jew in this movement is the Jew who does not believe that Israel should exist." And then he said it put him in mind of George Orwell's book, Homage to Catalonia, which I had to read in college. And in it, Orwell is caught between Franco's fascism on the right and Stalin's communism on the left. And he said, this is Orwell, one of the dreariest effects of all of this, being in Spain, has been to teach me that the left wing is every bit as spurious and dishonest as the right. Okay, I'm just saying. And I am the hostage that was rescued yesterday. You noted the hostage was a Muslim, an Israeli citizen Muslim, rescued by the Israeli army. Hamas is holding Muslim hostages, Buddhist hostages, Christian hostages. Israel is a polyglot of a nation. It is, yes, the only Jewish nation. But if you were ever to go there, it ain't white. It's white and brown and black. Many IDF soldiers are black. So when the left here suggests that Jews are whites, they're only showing their own ignorance. Look at Israel's population. Look at Israel's army. Look at this hostage. Former hostage. And I've been wanting to remind the extraordinarily ignorant folks on the left here about a history that they just don't know. They are keenly aware of the fact that Palestinians in 1948, when the state of Israel was created, and let's make clear, created by the United Nations, signed off on by the United Nations, and attacked immediately by all of the surrounding Arab states. Under siege from day one. And a lot of Palestinians ran. But you know what else was happening? Jews all over the Middle East. Jews who'd lived in African countries and Iran and Iraq and Lebanon and Syria, Jews who had lived in those countries as for generations and generations and generations. Those Jews ran too, were forced out. They lost their homes. Algeria, I'm just going to run some down for you, some numbers, okay? This is for you lefties who don't know a damn thing about the history. Algeria had 140,000 Jews. It has none now. Where are your Jews, Algeria? What happened to your Jews, Algeria? Egypt used to have 75,000 Jews. Where are those Jews? Syria, where are your tens of thousands of Jews? Iraq, my God, you had 135,000 plus Jews who had lived there for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Where are your Jews? That's even more extraordinary than apartheid. All of those countries, and then some, didn't mention them all, Morocco, Libya, all of those countries expelled or terrorized their Jews out. People who considered themselves citizens of those countries. Israel has, as citizens of its country, 1.5 million Arabs, most Muslim, some Christian. And whatever challenges they face, and yes, they do face some as a minority, they have full rights to vote. They sit as elected representatives in the Knesset, the Congress there. They sit on the Supreme Court. They are doctors and lawyers and journalists and business people. And when it is likened to some kind of like South African apartheid, I want to lose my mind. Where is, on the left, any feeling of what happened to all those Jews? Huh? You only see the movement of people going one way. You don't see the huge tsunami of Jews running for their lives, running from their homes, running from their property, all of it gone. It is just more than I can take. And this is just one Jew talking. I want to say to the lefties, of whom I used to consider myself a part, even if often an uncomfortable part, because I'm really just an old liberal. What is it about your single-minded, myopic view of cruelty and inhumanity in this world? What is it? Where are the protests for the poor Rohingya, for the Uyghurs, for the women and children dying of starvation and violence in Sudan right now? I'm talking about right now. Have you heard of peep? No. There is so much horror and injustice in this world that does need to be fixed. But the left sees none of it. I'm assuming they see none of it because I don't hear a goddamn thing about anything of any of those countries I just mentioned, let alone, my God, the crap that goes on in Turkey, in Iran, in so many other countries. And it's only Palestinians that they seem to care for. And yet, more than Palestinians are in horrible straits and in duress and in need of help. Oh my God. Millions more. But you know what those other millions don't have going for them? It ain't Jews who are bedeviling them. And so, let me tell you, don't tell a Jew what anti Semitism is. We know it when we see it. We know it. The hair, those little hairs on the back of our neck stand up. And to be seeing it and hearing it, little intonations sometimes of it, even from people with whom we stood in all of their struggles, in the Black community, in the gay community, in the left community. And now we hear crickets. I've been quiet about this for a bit, but guys, do not think that the Jews amongst you are not in great pain. Oh, poor Jews. In great pain. I was a protester in my youth and even beyond my youth, but I'm thinking about my college days. And I've spoken of how heady it is to be part of an energized, outraged group in your youth, thinking you can change the world, intent on changing the world. But you know, when you look back, you think, what did we do? I was part of all those anti war marches in the 60s into the 70s. And you know what? We didn't end the war. We didn't end the war. My God, it began slowly when JFK was president. And then Lyndon Johnson. And then our acting up at the Democratic Convention in 68 doomed any chance of keeping Richard Nixon out of the White House. And Richard Nixon and Henry Kissinger, man, they went to town and broadened that war. the self-righteousness and certitude of these young people today looks so familiar to me. But they, I hope, will at least grow up to look back and to see how myopic they were and how they fed anti Semitism all over the world. I hope they will own it at some point because I don't see any American lefties, some of whom I call friends, owning it. I don't. All right. I guess that's it. Hey, did you watch America's Got Talent last night? Boy, talk about something to distract you. I like it because I don't like, I hate competitions because I hate people losing, but then again, other people win. And you see people doing things that you can't believe. We don't have shows like that anymore, variety shows, right? So they've got, you know, people hanging by their noses and feet and magicians and dog acts and incredible dancers and singers, and it's fun. And last night I saw for the first time, because I'm not a regular viewer, this comedian who I find out is from Pittsburgh, and he's in the semifinals. Um, he's only lived in Pittsburgh for 3 years, because he's from, if you were to say where you're from, he wouldn't say Pittsburgh, I don't think. He would say Zimbabwe. And he came to the United States and specifically to Pittsburgh because he applied for a grant when he was in Zimbabwe. He was 18 years old and he earned the grant. It was specifically a grant for people who were comedians, and it was from the Steel City Arts Foundation. Wonderful. And it was the Steel City Arts Foundation which brought him to Pittsburgh. His name is Learn More. That's his first name, Learn More. He says it's often the case that children are named, with other names like that. He gave some examples, and I'm not even remembering them now. But his name is Learn More Janassi, and he's funny and adorable. Yeah, you just love him. And I think, Learn More is going to be going places. He lives in Friendship right now, but man, he's going to be going places. I'm telling you that. And it was delightful. Uh-oh, somebody called me. How long ago was that? I don't know. Let me. No, they're gone. Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't see it. Oh, no. Now I see it. Okay. Hello, hello, and sorry. Oh, they say no, it's not. That call's gone. Okay. I'm sorry. And I don't know. I had some trouble yesterday with Susan and this, and I'm seeing some calls here, but I'm not seeing the button I pushed to get you in. So that could be a problem. it could also be a problem because tomorrow I want to have as a guest John McIntyre, who many of you know. He's been on talk radio. He's been seen and heard at venues all over town as almost as long as I've been here. He's smart. He's funny, and he's going to be on tomorrow at 10:30. But I'm not seeing a way to let the caller in. So something's wrong. Damn. Uh-oh. I don't know what that's about. And the odds of getting it fixed before tomorrow are not great. So anyway, before our time is up, I did want to let this in. Speaking of like what we did to the. Oh, by the way, we have over a thousand subscribers. I just want to say. But keep it coming. We're working on our second 1,000 now. Bree, well done. You're such a nudge. Hey, I am so enjoying this Myron Cope book, and his daughter will be a guest. We just got to set up a date and make sure my phone thing works here. It is marvelously well written, and I've been laughing out loud through much of it. And boy, just being blown away by excerpts from Myron's print work. He started as a print journalist, sports journalist, and man, he was one of the best. I think a lot of people think of him as sort of a clown. Oh, no. One of the best. And in fact, when Sports Illustrated compiled the best articles in its entire history that were ever written, I think Myron was on the list twice. And I once for a piece he did on Cassius Clay, who was Cassius Clay at the time. It's brilliant. I think the one he won a ton of awards for was one he did on. Oh, for God's sake, Cullen, don't let this happen. Shit. Howard Cosell. Can you imagine? Howard Cosell and Myron spent like a ton of time together in New York. I ask you to imagine just the sound of the two of them talking to each other. Yow! Or yoy! Yike! Unbelievable. Anyway, it's just a delight. It is a delight. He took tap dance lessons when he was a kid. Did I tell you this already? Because I can't get it out of my head. From Gene Kelly at Beth Shalom, the synagogue there on Wilkins and beach on Shady and what the hell's that street? I don't know. It's a big synagogue where he was also bar mitzvahed. Myron bar mitzvahed. Oi. So yeah, that's coming up. And I don't know why I got waylaid. I waylay myself. I also, this is something I wanted to share with you. And in regard to like what we did to the Native Americans here, all the treaties we signed and never upheld, all the forced marches, the taking of their land. Um, I don't even know how you begin to compensate a people for what we did. And I'm not even getting into what we did to slaves, okay? I'm just talking Native Americans now. You know, if a nation would go before God in heaven and we were judged, unlike Ron DeSantis and all the other right wingers, he would not give us a pass on our shameful conduct. Canada has been every bit as horrific as a country. And you might not have seen it, but this is not something our Supreme Court, currently constituted, would do. But Canada's Supreme Court paved the way a few weeks ago for billions of dollars in compensation to be paid out to their Native Americans, their First Nations people, as they call them. And the Supreme Court in Canada said that the Canadian governments of various parties, doesn't matter, all the way back, had made a mockery of treaties signed with the First Nations. And so they're starting a reparation. It's a long time coming, and it's more than what we've done. Under treaty signed 170 years ago, one native tribe around Lake Huron and Lake Superior agreed to just leave over 36,000 square miles of land to British settlers. This is in 1850. And they were told in exchange they would get annual payments in perpetuity, forever. Well, guess what? I know you're ahead of me. But that land that they got hoodwinked out of has since generated billions and billions of dollars in mining profits and government revenue. And the treaties that the Canadian government signed with them said not only would they get annual payments for the land, but those payments would increase over time as they went on forever. Ha! In 1874, the Canadian government capped the payment annually to $4 per person. This obviously then went to court. And the First Nations people called to testify a Nobel Prize winning economist, Joseph Stiglitz. And he said, it is without a doubt that the Canadian government owes that one tribe up to $90 billion. I doubt they'll get it. But the amount of sheer thievery that we white folk have enjoyed is mind-boggling. I wish the protesters would stay closer to home and make that an issue here. You want to talk about people being pushed off their land, had everything stolen from them, killed, subjected to all manner of horror. Right here. You don't have to go looking across oceans and seas. Right here. But don't hold your breath. All righty, thank you so very much. I'll be with you tomorrow, and I don't know if McIntyre will be because I got to get this thing fixed. Something's wrong. Okay. Have a good one. Geez, stay out of that heat. It ain't healthy for you. I definitely know that's true.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.